Hello friends, I hope you're all doing okay. I'm finally getting around to doing some tutorial or tip kind of videos, and I thought it would make sense to start with one on sketching. Sketching is, well, in my opinion anyway, the most important part of drawing, which kind of sounds obvious since it's the first thing you do. But I think some people, and I'm guilty of this, I mean, I've done it, you've done it, we've all done it, we've all rushed the sketch. If you have a weak sketch, basically you're either setting yourself up for a not so great finished piece, or you're just creating a lot of work for yourself later, because you'll have to go back and fix things during later stages because the sketch was off to begin with. You will save yourself a lot of time in the line art stage and probably colouring and shading stages if you start with a good clear sketch. Some people do full colour sketches, like they have colour values and shading down in the sketch as well as just the basic form, or like, the skeleton for the line art. Generally, I only do that for like full finished pieces. But it's probably good practice to do it for any piece, because though it might take a bit longer than just this sort of basic, this kind of sketch to do a full colour one, it means you've already planned out where all the colours and shading will go, which is obviously going to save you time later when you actually come to the shading and colouring stages, because you've got the framework there already for you. Obviously, this is more my opinion than me telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing. Ultimately, it's your art. Do whatever you feel happy doing. This is just how I work and what I think helps make for a good sketch. So, firstly, I'd say plan your sketch, which sounds a little bit odd because obviously the sketch is kind of the plan for the rest of the drawing, but actually doing like a mini sketch before the proper sketch is quite useful. And actually that is a good time to just be as rough as you like and just do like quick gestures, be kind of quite messy and really fast. Don't think too much about it, just kind of do it. And I actually find it easier to do those sketches on paper. In fact, I don't even use paper, I use cake bags because my other job aside from art is working in a bakery. So I literally take a biro, and I think it's better to do it with a pen because then you can't erase any of it. You have to just do really it's gonna be what it is. You can't change it once you've drawn it if you're using a pen, which I think for a messy kind of almost instinctive sketch is kind of better than using pencil where you think, I can just erase it. So yeah, this is the sort of thing I'll do beforehand. Just a really quick, messy, tiny little thumbnail sketch in pen on a bit of paper that I'm going to throw away so that it doesn't matter how bad it looks. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Sometimes I wouldn't even do that much if it's just to get ideas for a pose. I will literally... that's the wrong brush. I will literally just do stick figures. They're slightly more detailed than that, but this kind of thing. And usually I'll do more than one. I'll sort of play around different poses, unless I already have a really specific idea what I'm going to do. I try out different things, because sometimes what you initially think might look good is not actually the best thing. So you can surprise yourself and find good new poses if you spend a bit of time playing around. The other tip, which is kind of before you actually start the actual sketch, is gather references before you start anything. Just again to save yourself time, so you're not having to search around. So once you have like your super basic quick little sketch and kind of know what you're doing, gather together references, whether that be the actual reference sheet of the character you're drawing, like here this page is going to be for a commission chibi, so I've got the character reference and like an actual photo reference of a chicken which I might need later, so I've got it all here. Personally, I would usually not have this on the actual canvas that I'm drawing on. I'd have it up on my laptop to be looking at, mainly because I just can't stand having stuff on the page while I'm drawing, but for the purpose of this tutorial I've put it on the canvas page so you know what I'm talking about. Oh, this reference sheet was drawn by Guardian on DeviantArt, by the way. Just a quick tip on references, I suppose. Use real life, like if you have your dog sitting in front of you, look at your dog while you're drawing, or use photos. Try not to use other people's art too much, just because they will have made mistakes. If you're sort of using their art as a reference, you're likely to reference their mistakes as well, which is obviously not ideal. And not to get into a completely different topic, but obviously if you're referencing other people's art, it gets into the sort of grey area of, you know, style theft and things like that. Obviously that I don't mean if people have specifically done anatomy studies for other people to reference, then yeah, obviously use those. I just mean general art. And even if your style is really cartoony, I mean obviously mine is not realistic at all, I still use references, certainly when I'm sketching, even if it's just to quickly glance at and get a vague idea of anatomy, especially if it's an animal you don't, or something you're not used to drawing. Like for me, I'm not used to drawing chickens, so I have a chicken reference there. You don't have to copy the reference image, you don't have to have the exact same anatomy if yours is very stylized. It just is a good idea to have actual proportions in mind when you're doing any sort of art, even very stylized. So moving on to the actual sketch, as I mentioned in my brush video, I use the technical pen for sketching as well as line art, with the streamline set to about 50. Again, I've said this in my video about the brushes I use. I sketch at full opacity. I know a lot of people lower the opacity when they sketch so that it's kind of like this. I don't do that. I haven't done that in a very long time, and I think for me personally it makes sketching easier to sketch with a brush at full opacity, because it's more decisive. Like, I realise obviously my sketches, I do tend to do like that quite a lot anyway, where I sort of sketch over the lines repeatedly and things like that. I think it still is more decisive, even if you are sort of going over it quite a lot, than that. It's just more solid, obviously, because it's not transparent, but it also saves you time, because to get a solid line you just literally have to do that rather than repeatedly do it, so that you know that this solid bit here is where your line art will be, rather than this pale bit It's just much clearer in my opinion. And I've heard other artists say the same thing, so I would suggest trying to sketch with full opacity, not 50% or whatever, because it is a good idea to be as decisive as possible when you sketch. Which leads me on to the other point: clean up your sketch. Now, I'm guilty of not always doing this. Sometimes I will leave sketches fairly messy, but seriously, you should clean up your sketch if you can. So if you do have like a lot of random lines, like I often do, to be honest, in my sketch, like if you've got something like that, once you've got the sketch down, basically, try and get rid of all the construction lines and things that you don't need, that you're not going to need when you're doing the line art and colouring and things. Just because obviously that's going to make it clearer for you to line over. If you've got a lot of random little lines, you're not going to waste time lining them when you shouldn't have, or not line something you did want to line, etc. My final main point, really, I think might be an obvious one, but use shapes. Break down what you're drawing into shapes. I know some people can do art decently where they're literally just doing that kind of thing, and honestly it blows my mind that people can draw like that, because I cannot. Like, you must be some sort of higher level chaotic being to be able to draw like that. I don't know how you do it. But for the rest of us, you should always break down what you're doing into different shapes. I use a lot of circles, certainly for the head, and I guess rectangles. This would be a lot easier to do if you've done some sort of anatomy study, which could literally be getting a photo of whatever, say a dog, and drawing over it. Let's do it with the chicken. And drawing like the shapes. Something like that. When you have time, it is a great idea to practice doing little things like that. It will improve not only your sketching, but your art in general. Also, try and keep your pen size when you're sketching similar to what you're going to be using when you're lining. Just again, it helps keep things clearer, because obviously if you've got a really thick line and then you're lining in a smaller size, do you line the inside or do you line the outside? Do you line in the middle? It's just makes it more complicated. Generally with art, do everything you can to make things simpler for yourself and save time. I'm not saying rush your art, but just do what you can to save yourself time. Also, although I said be as clear as you can when you're sketching, don't go nuts with that. Just, I mean, it is only a sketch. You can change it. It doesn't matter at this stage if it doesn't turn out quite how you want. You can resize things, you can erase things, and it's a really great idea to not get too caught up. Like, if something isn't working for you, so just erase it. Just get rid of it. Start again. It doesn't matter. You've only done, what, like 5 minutes work, 10, even if it's just like half an hour. If it's not working for you, get rid of it, change it, don't keep it. And I know sometimes you have this one really great bit of the sketch and you're trying to work everything else to fit that amazing bit of the sketch because you don't want to get rid of it because you like that bit so much. Honestly, just get rid of it. If it's not working, if it's holding back the rest of your piece, erase it. You can draw something equally as great again. In fact, you can draw something better, I'm sure. It's not the be all and end all if you have to get rid of it. Just, yeah, don't get hung up on a part of a drawing is what I'm saying, basically. Because it's about unless you're doing, I guess, a study or a particular part, it's about the drawing as a whole. If you have one really great bit of the drawing and the rest all kind of looks awkward and like it's been drawn around this one great piece, ultimately it's not going to look that good. So be quite ruthless with your sketching. Yeah. It does make life easier if you have references to look at while you're doing this. Don't just assume you know what you're drawing. Even if, like me, you've drawn a dog literally thousands of times. It still helps to have your references to look at. So, I hope you found this video vaguely useful. I mean, it is obviously aimed more at beginner artists, people just starting out with their artwork. But I do hope it's been of use to at least one person. If it helps even one person, I will be happy. So yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you're doing okay, and good luck with your artwork and your artistic endeavours. Feel free to leave a comment or a question about anything. I love reading comments and questions, and I will do my best to reply. See if you like this video, found it helpful. Feel free to leave a like, or if you didn't, feel free to dislike it. Any and all feedback is appreciated. So thank you for watching. Have a good day.